Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to do something that is half Swedish, half American. The Swedish side I've reviewed a number of beers from, and the American side I've only done one collaboration beer involving them, but very curious to see how this beer turns out. So for this one, for the Swedish side, we're going up to Gothenburg, Göteborg you should say in Swedish, and we're having another beer from Stigbergets Bryggeri, who do some pretty damn awesome New England IPAs, and this one is a collaboration that they did with Kings County Brewers Collective, who are from Brooklyn over in New York, and they're a very highly rated brewery actually. So this one is the East Coast India Pale Ale, as they're putting it, East Coast IPA, New England style IPA at 7.6% ABV, and this was one of the beers that was released through Stigbergets on the 2nd of November 2018, so it should be a really interesting one. This Kings County Brewers Collective are very highly rated. The only other beer I've had involving them was a collaboration that did with Amar Bryggeri, so as I've told you many a time, are one of my favourite Scandinavian breweries. But Stigbergets, like I say, famed for this particular style of beer, so very curious to see how it turns out. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Stigbergets and from Kings County Brewers Collective. Hopefully I can add more to both in the near future, and hopefully I can do some dedicated reviews to Kings County Brewer Collective as well. Never tried one of their beers just on its own before. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the American ones. This beer will appear in both of those lists, and they're both constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Stigbergets Bryggeri then. So Stigbergets, as I've told you before, are based in Gothenburg, and they were founded by Nils Hultkrantz and Richard Simonsson, and the pair own two bars that share the one kitchen. So this is Bar Kino and Hagebjörn's Cafe, which can be found on Linnegatan in the city, and both of these bars opened back in 2007. So originally the idea was to brew a few beers that they could sell in the bars, and this actually led to them kegging the beers and then selling them to other pubs and eventually bottling them, which began back in November of 2014. But their original beers were mainly English and German styles, but more recently, of course, they've been expanding into the more hoppy kind of American beers, and they've become particularly well known for the hazy New England style IPAs. But they started out with a 1,000 litre brew kit from Slovakia, but they upgraded to a 2,000 JTM system from Denmark in December of 2015, and they had plans to double this capacity whenever they could afford to, but they have changed a little bit since then. But Niels and Richard are joined at the brewery by 2 brewers and another 3 people who deal with logistics and packaging and various other things. The original head brewer of this brewery was actually Ole Andersson, who is the co-owner of OO Brewery, but he's since left to focus on that brewery, and he was replaced for a period by Barnaby Struve, who was one of the vice presidents at Three Floyds. But they've recently opened up a new brewery at Partihallarna, where they can brew 5,000 litres at a time, and they've also been beginning to work on some sour beers as well. And they also started selling their beers in 440 millilitre cans too, and this means that they'll be able to export a lot more. But they now have a brew team of Ollie Banks, who was formerly of Beavertown in London, and also Lucas Monroyd, who was a brewer for All In Brewing, who are one of the kind of quite well-known gypsy breweries around the Gothenburg area. They do some awesome beers as well, incidentally, and you need to check them out if you're particularly interested in Swedish beer. But Stigbergets, it's fair to say, are one of the better known Swedish craft breweries these days because of that fame they've had with the whole haze craze and kind of thing. So if you're interested in Swedish beer and you like the New England IPAs, Stigbergets are a very solid brewery that you should go for, particularly the Muddle and the Amazing Haze, 2 very good beers. So make sure you check them out if you get the chance. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Stigbergets just now. Let's go on to the second part of the notes, which is for Kings County Brewers Collective. So KCBC, as they like to be known, are based in Brooklyn, and they were founded by 3 guys. So this was Tony Bellis, Zach Kinney and Pete Lengiel. So Tony comes from a management background in services and retail, while Zach has a background in advertising, and Pete spent a number of years working as a microbiologist. But the 3 apparently met in home brewing groups, and Pete previously worked at a brewing apprenticeship for a Brooklyn brewery, and Tony also took a job job as a forklift driver and keg washer at Greenpoint Beer before working his way up to become a lead brewer. But the pair sat down together and they wrote up a business plan, and then they invited Zach to join them, who was actually one of their classmates when they were studying at the American Brewers Guild in Vermont, and they agreed by combining their skills they would have a very, very solid base to create a brewery. So they settled on the Bushwick area of Brooklyn to set up their brewery, and this had a very strong brewing heritage actually, owing to the number of German immigrants that they had into the area, and at one point this produced around 10% of American brewed beers back in 1900, but in 2016 they signed a lease on their warehouse in Troutman Street, and that is where you can find Kings County Brewing Collective today. From what I understand, they do have a tap room on site that you can go and visit, and like I said, these guys are one of the many little craft breweries popping up in New York State these days, and they're one of the more highly rated ones as well. So if you get the chance to try some of their beers, have a look at it. You've got the likes of Other Half and the Bronx Brewery and things like that that are supposed to be doing some very, very good stuff over there. So if you get the chance to try some of their beers, I highly recommend that you do. The collaboration that I had involving these guys with Amar Brews was very, very nice, so I'm very curious to see what they've thrown up with Stigbergets here. But yeah, that's all you need to know about Kings County Brewers Collective. Again, if you want to learn more, check out the brewery website in the description below, and you can follow these breweries both on Facebook and on Instagram and things like that, and that will keep you up to date with all the latest goings on. But yeah, let's get on to the tasting of this beer itself. So as you can see with this one, they've actually released this in almost the kind of Red Bull type can. I still don't know how people can drink that stuff. It is absolute gut rot. But yeah, they released this one, and this is a 330ml can, but it is one of these more kind of Red Bull tall style cans. I'm not sure why they released this one in this size of can rather than a 440. Maybe it's just to reduce it so that more people can actually have this beer. As I said, this was one of the ones that was released through the small partiers in Systembolaget. This one was on the 2nd of November 2018, but this one has a similar style of artwork to the West Coast IPA that they do, and the West Coast IPA is a really quite nice beer as well, I have to say. So if you get the chance to try that one, that's one of the ones that you're going to find nationwide in Sweden, and Stigbergets of course are exporting a lot of beers as well. So yeah, nicely presented this one. There you can see the American bald eagle on this one. Of course that's one of their national symbols over there. I don't know if it is, I think it is the national bird actually, to put it officially, but like I say, it's 7.6% New England style IPA. This one doesn't say what hops they've used in it, so we can maybe have a guess at that when we have a taste of this beer. But without further ado, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. So yeah. Oh, it actually pours, by the looks of it, a little bit more like a West Coast IPA, but it does have, it's actually very, very clear. I have to say that about this one. And this is one of the weird things. When I had their West Coast IPA, it was hazy, but then the East Coast IPA is clear by the looks of it. I mean, look at that. This beer is far clearer than some of the other ones you're going to get from Stigbergets. It's a lot clearer than the likes of Amazing Haze or Muddle or anything like that. But you know, when it's a New England IPA, you do expect it to be a little bit hazy, and it does have a bit of that haze to it, but it's nowhere near as hazy as I remember the other ones being from this brewery that Ole Anderson used to make. But yeah, looks pretty much as you would expect from an IPA. This one, I would say, a kind of medium orange colour. This one, somewhere in the middle of yellow and orange. Nice solid finger of a frothy white head. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But overall, you know, it looks pretty nice, and like I said, pretty much what you would expect in terms of colour from an IPA, but just a little bit clearer than I've seen some of these Stigbergets beers before. And as you open this beer up, of course, you get some really nice fruity aromas coming out of it. So let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. Ooh, that smells really nice. So for me, straight away I think there's mangoes in there, a little bit of passion fruit. I'm interested, I don't know, it could be Galaxy that they're using in this. I'd be very curious to know, because the passion fruit in there, there's also a little bit of like pineapple or something like that. And it almost has a little touch of like an apricot-y note as well. Definitely a little bit of apricot, I think. That makes me wonder if there is a bit of Galaxy in there. Yeah, I think there's maybe a little bit of Citra. Definitely some mangoes, I think. Galaxy, I wouldn't be surprised there's passion fruit. The other hop it can be when there's passion fruit as well would be Simcoe, but I think there's a little bit more complexity to this one, and that's what makes me say Galaxy, because Galaxy has the passion fruit base and then some of the other complexities to it. And I think there's a little hint of orange in there as well. There's something in my head that's telling me there might be a bit of mosaic in here, because you can just smell a little bit of an orangey, tangerine note coming out of this beer. So I reckon maybe Citra, Galaxy and Mosaic in this one. But you know, as I always say, you know, I could be talking absolute rubbish, but the fruits I get out of this beer: mangoes, passion fruits, a little bit of pineapple and things like that as well, and definitely some tangerine oranges. When you go onto the back end of this beer, you can pick up a little bit of an almost lychee sort of thing. I think a little bit of blueberry as well. That's what's making me think there's mosaic in here, is the orangey and the blueberry notes. Of course, the other hops you can get for orange, you get Mandarin and Bavaria, you can get Azaka, and there could well be a bit of Azaka in there as well. It could be oranges and a bit of pineapple is what you get from Azaka. That could be a possibility, but I'm not certain of that. And you also, when it's orange hops, you get Pacifica from New Zealand, you get Amarillo, which gives you that nice oily orange, but I'm pretty sure it's Mosaic in this one. But some lovely juicy fruity notes coming out of this one. In terms of the floral and grassy side of the hops, there is a little floral element to this one, but to me mainly it's a kind of grassier hop that you're getting out of this one. There is a little touch of a slightly spicy floral note to the beer, but some nice pale malt and biscuity sort of things in there as well. A little bit of that oaty character that you expect in kind of wheaty bready sort of things. But like I say, the thing that really surprises me about this beer is just how clear it is when it's supposed to be like an East Coast kind of New England IPA. Of course, when it says East Coast IPA, the other thing they could be referring to is like the Appalachia, kind of Carolina region, which do some pretty good IPAs as well. There's a lot of craft beer in Appalachia in America at the moment, from what I gather. But yeah, it smells really nice. As I always say, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But let's have a taste of this one now. So this one is the East Coast IPA at 7.6%, a collaboration brew between Stigbergets from Gothenburg here in Sweden and Kings County Brewers Collective from Brooklyn over in New York in America. So let's get stuck in. Slàinte, Skål. Yeah, now this is quite an interesting beer, this one. It's good, we'll say that straight away. It is a nice beer and it's very easy to drink. Probably a bit too easy to drink at 7.6%. So, this one for me, the first impression I have of this is that it has the juiciness that you would want of a New England IPA. It doesn't quite have the creaminess, and it's got more of a West Coast mouthfeel to it, to be quite honest with you. It's got a little bit more of that oily character. It doesn't have the IBUs that you'd expect, but it's like this one is one of these ones where it's like a New England IPA that doesn't have the sort of creaminess and things like that. It's got the juiciness and the sort of IBU level of the New England IPA, but it doesn't have that sort of creamy level. It's like a New England flavoured IPA, but with a West Coast oily mouthfeel to it. I think that's a good way to sum this one up sort of straight away. So yeah, for me, I would stick with that assessment of this beer. It's nice and it's very easy to drink. And as I've said over quite a few videos now, there's been so much of this haze craze recently that people have forgotten about the good old kind of big, bitter, sweet malt base West Coast IPA. So it is nice to see that people are taking that, or that brewers are taking that New England flavour, that juiciness that people like, but putting in a bit more of the West Coast character to it. This one, I'm not sure what Stigbergets were kind of going for with this beer. And it is nice, don't get me wrong, I'm not criticising how good the beer is in that sense, but when it's an East Coast IPA, they do have their West Coast IPA, and they've got the things, from what I understand, they've got the things like Muddle and Amazing Haze and the GBG Beer Week, of course. Those are their kind of big hitters, if you like. Those are the big beasts of a beer. I'm not sure if the West Coast IPA is meant to be a kind of higher production level one, and if this is going to be one that they do from the East Coast side of things. But like I say, the West Coast IPA that I had from them was hazy, and then they've put out an East Coast IPA now that is clear, and really, to me, it should be the other way around. That's what I would have always expected. from this brewery. But in terms of the beer itself, it is a nice beer, and you know, Stigbergets, to be honest, they're not going to put out a bad beer. That's one thing you have to say about them. And yeah, I do like this one, but as I say, it does strike me as being a little bit more West Coast than you would expect. And you know, when they've got a West Coast IPA and East Coast IPA, like I say, it is a little bit confusing in that regard. You know, it would probably be better for them to swap the labels around with these two beers that they do. But yeah, let's try and break this one down a little bit then. So, with the malt base then, you've got this nice kind of pale malt quality that just blankets the middle of your palate. On top of that, you can pick up that there's a little bit of a wheaty malt in there. It's not too much, but you can pick up there is a little bit of an oaty flavour as well. The oats and the wheat come out a little bit more the further into the aftertaste you go. Right in the centre of your palate there is a little touch of a biscuity kind of caramelly note in there. This malt base does have a little bit of sweetness, and like I said, the thing you would expect from a New England IPA or an East Coast IPA is to be a little bit bigger and a little bit smoother and things like that. And with this one, it's a nice beer, but as I say, it just strikes me as more of a West Coast IPA. This. So yeah, it's, as I say, when you go into the malt base a little bit more, there's a bit more biscuit and things like that. It does have a little bit of sweetness there, so that malt base does have a good bit of West Coast character to it, but it does have that oaty New England type feel to it, so it's nice. And as I say, I like how this beer goes together. As a standalone beer, it is pretty nice, and I like how all these flavours kind of fit together. So on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, there's a little touch of earthiness there. Again, that's making me think there's mosaic present. It smooths out a little bit the further forward you go. Front corners of the palate, there's a nice little bit of a kind of floral hoppy bitterness there, and then round the very front curve of the tongue you've got that typical lighter kind of grassy citrusy thing there as well, which is nice. And behind the front curve of the palate you've got that little oily bubble where those nice juicy fruity esters start to come out of the beer. And yeah, so with this one, there is a little bit, I think there's a little bit of passion fruit in there, because you can feel it has that slightly darker tropical fruit flavour. That's the way I always describe the likes of grapefruit and passion fruit and things like that. Grapefruit is the kind of darkest and sourest of the more tropical fruits that you get, but for me it has a little bit of that in the base. There's a nice little bit of a kind of orangey, tangerine flavour to this one as well, and then you start to get, as you go further into the aftertaste, you'll start to get a little bit of the blueberries. I do suspect there's mosaic in here. I'm pretty sure that mosaic is one of the hops they've used in here. There is a little bit of a pineapple-y note as well, which is making me think maybe there's a bit of galaxy in there. Citra, I'm not sure about. That was the other hop I was getting from the aroma. There is a little touch of a kind of mango-y note in this one, but I'm really not sure about that. Could well be Citra that they've used in there, but I definitely want to say mosaic. There's part of me, there's quite a bit of me wants to say galaxy as well. I'm pretty sure there is a passion fruity note in that. It could well be Simcoe right enough. There is definitely a passion fruit note to this beer, but I want to say galaxy just because there's a little bit of that kind of pineapple-y note as well. And I always like this, I always like playing Guess the Hops with this beer, but for me the main fruit's in the one, just to kind of sum it up. There's passion fruit in there. I think there's a little touch of mango or something too. Definitely some orangey, kind of orangey qualities to this one too. And I'd say more of a tangerine orange. It's just a little bit sharper than the more oily orange characters that you can get from Amarillo, I think. And on the very front tip of the tongue there's a little bit of blueberry or something. And I do suspect there's a little bit of pineapple as well, which, like I say, is making me wonder if there's a bit of galaxy in there. But overall, as I say, in terms of flavour, it is a nice beer, but as an East Coast IPA, you do expect it to be a little bit creamier and more kind of oaty, New Englandy kind of thing in the malt base. But yeah, as an IPA and things, it is very, very nice, and I do wonder if this is one that they're going to make one of their regular beers. If I remember rightly, their West Coast IPA they have is around 6%. So it's interesting that they've chosen to make this one as 7.6%. It's considerably stronger than that, and you're starting I think by definition, because 7.5% from what I remember is when you start to go into Imperial IPAs. By definition, this one is like an Imperial New England IPA from what I understand, although it would be on the lower end of that scale. Some people might say 8% for an Imperial IPA. But as a beer itself, it is nice. Like I say though, the confusing thing for me is this West Coast, East Coast thing that Stigbergets have. Kings County Brewers Collective, like I said, I've not tried any of their beers on their own. That would be something, but these two collaborations that I've had now that have involved them have both been good, so hopefully I can get over there and try a few more of their beers at some point. But as a beer, this one, it is very, very nice. I think the best way to sum this is like what I said at the start. It's got a bit of the New England flavour in there, a little bit more sweetness, which is what you expect from the West Coast IPAs. It's got a bit of that in the malt base as well, and the mouthfeel overall to me is a little bit West Coast too. So let's tape that mouthfeel now. Mid-bodied beer, carbonation is very smooth. To me, this mouthfeel is a little bit more oily. It does have a little bit of the smoothness you expect from the New England IPAs, but to me, that mouthfeel is definitely more West Coast. Nice little bit of hoppy bitterness. I would guess it's somewhere around I think about 30 IBUs, which is standard for the New England beers. Of course, the West Coast ones usually go up to like 70 or so. But yeah, nice little bit of juicy fruity quality to it as well. And like I say, the malt base has a balance between smoothness, but it leans a little bit more towards the sweeter side of things, and particularly in the aftertaste you get the caramelly and biscuity notes coming out of this one too. But like I say, very, very nice beer, this one, and it's cool to see that Kings County Brewers Collective are collaborating with a lot of these different Scandinavian breweries too. This is the second collaboration I've had involving them. It's a nice beer, but like I say, you know, I've explained that a few times now. For me, this one, I would say in terms of Stigbergets beers, it's not on the same level as GBG Beer Week or Muddle, or there was Double Muddle as well. It's not on the same kind of level as the Amazing Haze or the Muddle beers, but it's still a nice solid beer. And I think this, the impression I get of this one, particularly from the artwork and things they've put on it, is that this is intended as one of their more kind of high production volume beers, if you like. But that said, Amazing Haze and Muddle, I think, are regular beers, and Systembolaget too. So an interesting collaboration, this one, and it's cool to try something a little bit different from Stigbergets too. But a solid beer, as I say, New England IPA flavours with a little bit more of a kind of West Coasty influence in it. So it is kind of an interesting hybrid IPA for me, this one. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this. So this one was the East Coast IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri up in Gothenburg here in Sweden, a collaboration with Kings County Brewers Collective from Brooklyn over in New York. An interesting beer, this one. If you get the chance to try it, have a go at it for yourself and see what you think. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Do check out my social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Stigbergets and from Kings County Brewers Collective as well. And hopefully I can review more beers from both of these guys in the fairly near future. But thank you once again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The East Coast IPA from Stigbergets and Kings County Brewers Collective. Until the next time, Slanja just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slanja, skål, cheers.